Most of us grew up with a simple, tidy story about how we got our dogs. Thousands of years ago, a hungry wolf wandered into a human campfire, snatched a scrap of food, and decided that hanging out with these hairless, bipedal creatures was better than hunting in the freezing dark. Over time, we grew fond of the wolves. They grew fond of us, and through a series of intentional breeding programs, we turned a terrifying apex predator into a golden retriever that spends its afternoon napping on a couch. It is a heartwarming tale of mutual benefit, human ingenuity, and the taming of the wild. But there is just one problem with that story. It is almost certainly entirely wrong. When you look at the genetic evidence, the timeline doesn't actually make any sense. If we were the ones choosing the most docile wolves to breed, it would have taken thousands of years of trial and error before we ended up with anything resembling a dog. But the archaeological record shows that ancient humans were living alongside proto-dogs long before they had the sophisticated social structures, or even the agriculture required to manage such a breeding program. So if we didn't domesticate them, who did? The answer is, in a very real sense, they domesticated themselves. And they didn't do it because they were looking for a best friend. They did it because they were looking for an edge in a world that was trying to kill them. Imagine yourself as a wolf living 30,000 years ago. Life is brutal. You are fighting for scraps in a landscape dominated by bears, lions, and rival wolf packs. You are constantly on edge. You are wired for extreme aggression and extreme fear. Any sudden movement could be a rival. Any unknown scent could be a threat. Your survival depends on your ability to flee or fight. But then, you notice something strange. Those new creatures, the ones that walk on two legs and build those bright, warm things that hold fire, are incredibly messy. They leave piles of bones and scraps behind. Most of your packmates stay far away. But you? Maybe you have a slight genetic mutation. Maybe your flight or fight response is just a little bit slower. Maybe your stress hormones, the ones that make you react to the world with pure terror, are just a fraction lower than everyone else's. You creep closer. You get the food. You survive. Now you have an evolutionary advantage. You don't have to hunt as hard. You don't have to risk your life fighting for territory. You spend more time eating and less time starving. You have more puppies. And because you are the one surviving, you pass that genetic trait, that slightly lower stress threshold on to your offspring. This is the self-domestication hypothesis, and it is a game changer. It suggests that dogs didn't become our friends because we chose them. They became our friends because they were the wolves that were brave enough to stop being afraid of us. But here is where things get truly weird. Scientists decided to test this theory in the most dramatic way possible. In the late 1950s, a Russian geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev decided to replicate the process of domestication with silver foxes. He wanted to see how long it would take to turn a wild, aggressive animal into a tame one. He didn't use rigorous training. He didn't use treats. He selected them for only one trait, the willingness to approach a human without biting. That was it. That was the only variable. Within just a few generations, the foxes started to change. And they didn't just become tamer. Their ears began to flop. Their tails began to curl. They started developing patches of white fur, looking suspiciously like spotted dogs. They even started whimpering for human attention, something wild foxes absolutely never do. Belyaev had stumbled onto something scientists now call the domestication syndrome. It turns out that when you select for low stress and low aggression, you aren't just changing an animal's personality. You are triggering a massive, cascading change in their biology. By selecting for a calmer animal, you are effectively choosing for a different set of hormones, which influences the development of the brain, the pigment of the skin, and even the shape of the skull. The transition from wolf to dog wasn't just a behavior shift. It was a biological explosion. We often think of ourselves as the masters of this relationship, the architects who shaped the dog to fit our needs. But if you look at the trajectory of history, it looks less like a human project and more like a massive evolutionary bargain. Dogs didn't just enter our camps. They entered our biology. They learned to read our faces, to follow our pointing fingers, and to synchronize their heartbeats with ours. They are the only species on Earth that has evolved to perceive us as a primary source of emotional security. And that is the real secret. We didn't just get a tool for hunting or a guard for our homes. By allowing these wolves to creep closer to the fire, we inadvertently invited a completely different type of intelligence into our lives. We created a partnership that forced both of our brains to change. We became more observant, more empathetic, and more social because we were living with a creature that was constantly watching us, waiting for our cues, and trying to figure out what we were feeling. We look at a dog today and see a pet. We see a companion. But when you strip away the fur and the leash, you're actually looking at one of the most successful evolutionary strategies in the history of life on this planet. They didn't just survive by competing with the world. They survived by becoming the only species that could truly survive us. And in the process, they didn't just change their own biology. They changed ours. Next time you look into your dog's eyes, remember that they aren't just there because you fed them. They are there because 30,000 years ago, they made a choice that transformed two of the most aggressive, competitive predators on Earth into the most unlikely and most enduring pair of partners in the history of the world. It's a partnership that redefined what it means to be human. And it all started because one wolf decided it was finally safe enough to stop being afraid.